Welcome to Shalom World. I'm Robert Falzon, and I'm bringing you the Gospel of Life series. Today, we're doing the 9th in a 12-part series, and this is God's presence is the Holy Spirit. Let's begin a story of the people of God, and we'll come to the main point of the Holy Spirit as we go through. So, the people of Israel were in bondage and slavery in Egypt. Moses was sent by God to set the people free. They slayed the Passover lamb. The blood of the lamb was put on the lintels and doorposts, and the people of Israel fled from Egypt and went through the Red Sea, went into the desert to Mount Sinai, near Mount Sinai, and as they went through the desert, they created a house for God, created a dwelling for God called the Tent of Meeting. The Tent of Meeting had the 10 Commandments, the Ark of the Covenant, some people say the bones of Joseph, but anyway, this was the tent of God, this was the house of God, and as the people traveled through the desert, God was present, the cloud was present, the smoke and lightning was present. God's presence was obvious to the people of God. God was present to the people of God. So, fast forward a few years. The people go into the promised land. Then we have the time of kings, and we have King David. King David desired to build a new temple. Build a temple for God, a house for God, not just the tent, but a house for God. But God wouldn't allow him to do that because of his failings. And his son, Solomon, built the first temple. So magnificent and so beautiful and so incredible that people from a long way away came to see the temple, the house of God, the temple of Solomon, beautifully built. Now, on the dedication day, when Solomon was going to dedicate the temple to God, he slayed thousands, tens of thousands of sheep and goats and animals. There was the massive offering. And then after the massive offering at the dedication of the temple was filled with smoke and the fire of God. The presence of God was so tangible. There was lightning and smoke and the presence of God, and everybody could hardly move because God's power and His glory was present. It was awesome, incredible. Nobody could mistake that God had turned up that day. God turned up that day, and it was a huge presence, huge presence. Fast forward now, maybe 400 plus years. The Babylonians come. The Babylonians destroy the temple. They take all the possessions of the temple, including all the sacred vessels. They take the Ark of the Covenant. They take whatever was there that was precious. The Babylonians take that and all of the people of Israel to Babylon, into slavery. Another 400 years, possibly, maybe more. The Assyrians, Persians, and they take over the Babylonians, and then after a period of time, with the prophet Ezra and Nehemiah, they get permission to start the rebuilding process of the temple. So they rebuild the walls of the city first, then they start to rebuild the temple. Takes a long time. Finally, they have a temple that's complete. People of God have a city, people of God have a temple. The place of God has a place for God to dwell, for the people to go visit, people to go and speak to God. Fast forward again. Now we have the time of the Romans. The Romans come to the great city, they break the walls, they break the temple, they bring down the house of God, not completely, but they do destroy it, and the people of God now no longer have a home of worship. The Romans then, through Herod, rebuild the house of God and extend the house of God, including adding the portico of Solomon and turn the temple of God again once into the house of God, and it became the temple, that Jesus was presented in. It became the temple where Satan took Jesus up to the parapet and said, "Throw yourself down." It became the temple where Jesus cleansed the temple of the money collectors and the traders. It was the temple that Jesus said, "In 3 days, and you will destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again." And you know what they said? They said 46 years. 46 years has taken us to build this place. How can you build it in 3 days? Of course, he was talking about the temple of his own body, his own life. So then, now let's go forward a few years to that great and terrible day. 3 o'clock, and it's dark. The clouds cover the sun. There is lightning. The people are terrified. Jesus is on the cross. It's noon, and he's dying. Then closer to 3 o'clock, the earth shakes. The curtain in the temple is torn in two. The graves are opened. Jesus on the cross cries out, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani." He dies. And as he's dying, he breathes his last breath. He is dead. It is finished. The price is paid. Jesus is taken down around 6 p.m., just before the sun completely goes away. Jesus is taken down from the cross. He's placed in a tomb. The stone is rolled in front of the tomb. Jesus is dead. A day, another night, and then the next day, Sunday, Jesus is risen from the dead. The very worst thing becomes the very best thing. Jesus is risen from the dead. And then Jesus is ascended into heaven. He leaves his disciples and apostles. He leaves his mother and goes to his Father in heaven, sits at the right hand of the Father to be ruler and Lord of all. The disciples, the apostles, Mary, and possibly a few others were waiting. They didn't know what to expect. Jesus has said to them, "Go, and I will meet you. Go." So they go, and they're waiting. And then Pentecost comes. They're in the room, they're praying, and then this fire from heaven, just like the dedication of the first temple, just like the fire and smoke and lightning on that great and terrible day. Fire from heaven, and comes down upon them all, and then separates into tongues and comes down on their heads. And all of them have the power of God, the presence of God, the visible fire and glory of God sitting on them, but not just sitting on them, inside of them. The Holy Spirit is given to those people that day. The Holy Spirit descends on those people that day. The Holy Spirit fills those people that day, and the Holy Spirit changed them. The Holy Spirit made them different. They were no longer scared, frightened, small, limited people by their ideas and thoughts, but now they were expanded, made more and different. They became God-filled people, ready to change the world. Peter goes out into the street, as they all do. Peter goes out into the street, and then he begins to preach like a wild man. And Peter says to all those gathered, "This Jesus whom you crucified and died, this Jesus who died and was buried, now is risen from the dead, and we saw him. We saw him. Say you're sorry and give your lives to him." That was Peter's Acts 2. sermon. So the Holy Spirit was given. The new temple of God is the human person. The human person becomes the new temple that God dwells in. The human person is the place where God's presence, power, fire, and life is now made visible. The human person, that's you and me. You are now the temple of the Holy Spirit. You are now the house of God, as I am, the house of God. You hold the presence of God within you. The prophet Ezekiel prophesied, I will give you a new heart and I will place a new spirit in you. I will take your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh, and I'll put the Spirit of the living God in you. The Spirit's given to us in a powerful way, not to make us normal. The Spirit is to make us not normal. The Spirit is to make us wild and different. The Spirit comes to change us and to give us life. The Spirit comes to make us different. Who wants to be sophisticated, professional Christians? Jesus didn't have much time for those guys, did he? They looked like the real deal, but they weren't. They were saying that they were followers of God, but they weren't. None of us want to be like them. We want to be different. We want to be changed. I want to be a little bit wild, filled with the Spirit. You know, what's God calling you to? He's not calling you to be nice. He's not calling you to be mediocre, tame, domesticated, lukewarm, safe, mediocre, timid. He's not calling us to be that. He's calling us to be different. He's calling us not to be normal. He's calling us to be different and adventurous and wild Christians. What's normal and mediocre about our faith? What's normal about a burning bush speaking to a man that set 600,000 free? What's normal about a barren woman giving birth to a son? What's normal about a virgin giving birth to a son? What's normal about lame people walking, lepers being healed, those that are blind seeing and deaf hearing? What is normal? What is normal about our faith? What is normal about water being turned into wine, wine being turned into blood, and a flat, white, tasteless, small piece of bread becoming God? What's normal about that? Nothing. It's wild. It's wonderful. It's awesome. The Holy Spirit comes not to make us normal, not to make us like everybody else. The Holy Spirit comes to make us alive, to make us filled with the fire and power of God. That Holy Spirit dwells in you and me, dwells in this new temple now. So John the Baptist was a man filled with the Spirit, a wild man, came out of the desert, left the temple, came out of the desert, went down to the river and started baptizing sinners. And John the Baptist said this of Jesus, I baptize with water, but he who comes after me will baptize with fire and the Holy Spirit. Will baptize with fire and the Holy Spirit. Jesus said, I've come to bring fire on the earth, and I wish it was ablaze already. I've come to bring fire, and I wish it was ablaze already. You know, I think if we Christians were filled with the Holy Spirit, we were changed and made different, and we moved away from our normalcy and mediocrity, and we became fire, the world would change, wouldn't it? At least the world that's surrounding us, you know. My marriage would change. My children would change. My parish would change. my diocese maybe would change. Now, how many of you know all of those things need changing? More fire, more power, more love, more Holy Spirit, more God. Certainly, my parish needs changing, doesn't yours? Certainly we need more fire and love. Certainly our children need changing, don't yours? Certainly most of our marriages need some changing. The Holy Spirit has names, doesn't it? The Holy Spirit's been called the Advocate. Advocate meaning one that stands on behalf of you. Advocate. Paraclete. The Paraclete stands in the court, stands in the judgment place and says, no, this one's all right. I know him. I know her. I will stand for this one. This one belongs to me. Holy Spirit, Counselor. The Holy Spirit is constantly speaking to us, speaking words of life. The Holy Spirit whispering soft messages into our soul. The Holy Spirit is also called the Lord and Giver of life. The Lord and Giver of life. I want that, don't you? I want the Lord and Giver of life running loose in my soul, don't you? So what do? Let's bring all of it to the Holy Spirit. Let's bring the whole lot, the whole package to the Holy Spirit. Don't we want this temple to be filled with the fire of God? Then let's bring it. Let's bring it to God. Let's bring our hearts. Let's bring our minds. Let's bring our strength. Let's bring our soul. Let's bring our bodies to the Holy Spirit. Let's bring our relationships. Let's bring our workplaces. Let's bring our pain. Let's bring our suffering. Let's bring our anxiety. Let's bring our addictions. Let's bring our unruly attractions. Let's bring the lack of money, the lack of knowledge, the lack of strength, the lack of energy. Let's bring it all. Bring it all to God. Let's bring our parishes and our dioceses to God. Let's bring our prayer life. Let's bring it all to Him. Let's bring it all to Him. Take it to the Holy Spirit. How about that? How about you? How about you changing the world? You could become the new temple. You could be filled with the Holy Spirit, and your life could change the life of the world. Do you remember when I said Jesus on the cross around 3 p.m. breathed his last? Well, after the resurrection, Jesus breathed again. In John chapter 20, the disciples are gathered. Jesus comes into the room where the apostles and the disciples are gathered. And Jesus comes to them. He says, "Be not afraid." And then it says, he breathed on them. The word that's used in John chapter 20 about the breath is the same word used in Genesis chapter 1 when it says God made humanity in His image and likeness, and then God breathed into them. He breathed life into them. That life is the same word that's used in John chapter 20 when it says He breathed on them. And then He said, receive the Holy Spirit. Receive the Holy Spirit. Would you like to receive the Holy Spirit? I need to receive the Holy Spirit every day. I can't do this journey called life. I can't do the things that God is asking me to do. I can't be a good husband. I can't raise my children. I can't be active in the life of the church. I can't be a good parishioner. I can't be a missionary disciple without the Holy Spirit. It's not possible. It's not possible. So, receive the Holy Spirit. Would you like to receive the Holy Spirit this day? Yes, you would. I would too. So where are you? Wherever you are in the world, whatever place you're sitting in, or wherever you are, whatever you're doing right now, what I'd like to ask you to do is to hold your hands out in front of you. Just hold your hands out like this. Hold your hands out. Hold your hands out in front of you. And say these words. Come, Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. Just say those words now. Say them aloud. Hands open in front of you. Come, Holy Spirit. Say it again. Come, Holy Spirit. Come fill the hearts of your faithful. Come fill my heart. Come, Holy Spirit, fill my heart. Come, Holy Spirit, set fire to me. Set fire to my life. Set fire to my relationships. Set fire to the church. One more time. Come, Holy Spirit. Rekindle the fire in my heart for you. Come. May the Lord and giver of life bless you this day and fill you this day. Amen. Thank you for having me come into your home. It's been a great joy to share this little journey with you. May your week go well. I hope we can see you again next week, same time, same place, with a message, the gospel of life. God bless you.
A lot of talk in our church today about the new evangelization, and we might ask, well, what's new about the new evangelization? One thing that's new is that we're trying to renew the faith in people who should already be Catholic, should already be Christian. Individuals, families, communities, whole cultures that need to rediscover the gospel. And so what's new is that they're getting a new shot in the arm of faith, of evangelization. Another thing that's new about it is the way that we do that. And the new media and groups like Shalom World TV are very important for bringing the gospel anew to our cultures, to our families, to each of us individually. And so I encourage all the viewers of Shalom World TV, and I encourage Shalom World TV themselves to keep up the good work, to keep watching this channel and to keep up the good work of presenting the Catholic faith to our world today.
Shalom World, God's own channel.